Welcome in, everybody, to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast, powered by Full-Time Fantasy and the FFWC. Billy Musio and Jody Smith here, and tonight we're going to be running through round one of the NFL draft. We're going to do a mock draft here, the Full-Time Fantasy mock draft. And Jody and I have been working on this for the last couple of days. Got a slideshow here, so it's a little bit easier for you to follow along instead of just watching us talk. But before we hop in, Jody, how you doing tonight, bud?
Doing great, man. It's like the third straight week of nothing but NFL draft talk. So I think you and I pretty much have a really good concept and idea of who these guys are and, what the team needs are, and really excited about it. And, I only got one more week to wait to see how it happens and to see just how wrong our little mocks are.
Yeah. Do you have any traditions on draft day? Do you have anything planned? What do you normally do?
Well, more recently, it's been all fantasy and writing focused. Like, I've done really well with Fantasy Pros mock draft contests. But before, my friends and I would get together and we'd try to go out and, have a few cocktails and just have a good time. But as you get a little older, kids get involved and, our careers are in different places. It's been a little more unpredictable. I don't even remember last year. I'm trying to think, man, where was I? I remember starting 7 for 7 in last year's draft. And I remember talking about it on Twitter, but where I was and what the rest of the night was, I don't remember anymore. What about you?
Yeah. I usually, I take the day off usually at barbecue. It's kind of like mini Super Bowl for me. It's like a holiday at the Museo house. I'll sit here. I have a draft in the morning that I have planned. Draft day on draft day, and then from there I'll start barbecuing. Probably smoke some ribs, smoke some wings. And just
another excuse at the Museo house to get some wine and get some meats on the grill. I understand, though.
Yeah, food, wine, and football. Can't ask for much more outside family, right?
No, so these are great times we're living in.
Yeah, so that's our tradition over here at this household. So let's hop in. We have a lot to cover in an hour. So I'm going to pull up the slide here. Let's go ahead and share the screen, and we'll get this bad boy pulled up. Perfect. So expert mock draft here for Full-Time Fantasy, and Jody Smith is on the clock with pick 101 with Jacksonville Jaguars. Who are Jaguars taking, Jody?
Well, I mean, after that rookie year last year, you're tempted to think, hey, they could be in the market for quarterback, but no. Let's get serious. Look, you have to build around Trevor Lawrence after the investment you took, and there's still, hope out there. Fortunately for the Jags, they did a really good job in free agency of reinforcing their receiving core. You signed Christian Kirk, you got Zay Jones. They even signed Cam Robinson and Brandon Scherff to shore up the offensive line. So to me, what they need to do is hit a home run, knock it out of the park. On the other side of the ball, you go with the safest defensive player in this game to shore up that defense. It was 28th in points allowed, 21st in sacks. Let's go with Aiden Hutchinson. In my view, he is the safest edge rusher, defensive lineman in this draft, and he should fit perfectly well with what the Jaguars do schematically. And like I said, key thing is here, as you're not taking chances. You got a new regime in town. Make a safe pick. You hit a home run with Hutchinson.
Hutchinson's off the board. I have pick 2 in the Detroit Lions select Kayvon Thibodeaux. And Lions were 32nd ranked team on defense last year. I think they're going to add one of the top defensive talents in this draft. And last year, he was originally projected to be the number 1 pick here in 2020 for 2022. But Hutchinson just had such a great season. So I think that the pick here is going to be for Detroit to bolster their defense, because their defense has a lot of holes in it. And I think that's by them selecting their future rush star here at number 2. I think they're able to shore that up. If this is real life, I would not be surprised to see the Lions maybe trade down, though. But we are not doing trades in this mock draft. We are simply going down through the order in which they are supposed to be picking. All right, number 3.
Yeah, this one was tough for me because the Texans probably have the worst roster in football. So you have needs pretty much at every position. And you've been devoid of draft picks for the last couple of years. So this is really Nick Casario's first chance to make an impact. You've got now 2 picks in the top half of the first round. So another team like the Jags, they can't screw around. You can't take chances and gamble. Now, I know the Texans will probably be in the market to trade down. I'd really like to see them take Sauce Gardner here, but it's really extremely unusual to see a cornerback go this tall, this high in a draft. So I'm going to assume that Casario is going to want to tear it down and rebuild from the trenches. You've got a Band-Aid with Davis Mills just because they kind of hit a home run in the third round last year. It gives them a chance to see what they have with this kid. If he makes it, great. If not, then you move on next year, which is looking like a really good quarterback draft. Anyhow, I think the Texans reinforce the offensive line with Evan Neal. I see Neal as the safest, best pick at offensive line in this draft. The Texans were 24th in pass blocking per PFF last year, and they were 32nd in run blocking. So this is obviously a huge need for the Texans, as is every position. But it also gives the Texans flexibility to move away from Laramie Tunsil after next year because that contract's not doing them any favors. And he's not going to live up to that. So you can move on from Laramie Tunsil. They've got 2019 first rounder Titus Howard. They can slide him over to guard. You could input Neal at right tackle before he can play left tackle starting in 2023. And like I said, Casario needs to come in, hit a home run, hit a safe pick. And to me, Evan Neal is the way to do that.
All right. I got pick 1.04 New York Jets, and they're going to take Treylon Walker here. Jets were 31st ranked defense in the NFL last year. They haven't had a great pass rusher really since Muhammad Wilkerson, I think, was the only name that I could come up with. And he left the team in 2017. So they have a lot of other opportunities here on this Jets team, but I think that the Jets have shown commitment to enforcing their defense year after year. And I think that being here inside the top 4 picks, I think they're going to shore up their front line here with Walker. All right. Pick 105 on the board.
Gotta like that with Walker because you see a lot of talk of him going 101 overall to Jacksonville. I guess it just depends on your tolerance for risk reward there because Walker might have the highest upside of any player in this whole draft. There's a little bit of risk there. So for the Giants, another team like the Jags and the Texans who have a pretty big rebuild project ahead of them. You got a new regime here in town. So you got to go with can't miss picks. And with me, Sauce Gardner, like I said, I really wanted to take him at number 3 for Houston. He's easily the best cornerback in this draft. And with the Giants, they're actively shopping James Bradberry, so they're going to have a huge void at cornerback soon, especially if they're able to trade Bradberry before the draft or maybe during the draft, then we'll have a better idea. But when you have a difference-making cornerback on like Sauce Gardner, he's the kind of guy that can actually line up against number 1 wide receivers and shut them down. He matches all. He checks all the boxes for a potential shutdown corner. And these are the kind of guys that you plug in. They shore up your secondary for like a decade. Home run pick. Like I was saying, Cincinnati corner. When you watch their film, the dude was great. You can say what you want about the level of competition, but he's easily the best cornerback in this draft for me. And I think the Giants would be pretty happy to have him on the board at 5.
All right. I'm up next, Carolina Panthers. And Carolina Panthers are going to take the first quarterback off the board, pick 106, and take Malik Willis. This team is just in dire need of quarterback. I really feel like a quarterback with this team is going to make a huge difference. And it really takes them from being just inconsistent to actually being fairly deadly on the offensive side of the ball. They've been playing quarterback roulette between Darnold and Cam Newton last year. I just do not think that Darnold is going to be the answer for this team, even in 2022. They have just been whiffing in free agency with quarterbacks that have hit the market. And Rule seems to be playing for his future here, I think, in 2022. You and I have touched base on that on previous podcasts as well. So I think a quarterback here at 6 makes sense. And Willis has the ability to also attack this offense on the ground. He had 944 rushing yards in his junior season at Liberty. He had 878 yards in rushing in 2021 as well at Liberty there. Passing wise, he's a little raw, 61% passing completion percentage in 2021, 64.2% completion percentage in 2020. So I do think he's a little raw in the throwing aspect, but the athleticism is there, and I think that the Panthers are going to take a risk on his athleticism and add him to the mix here. Pick 107, Jody.
Here's the thing about Willis. Like you said, you hit on some good points. That Matt Rule is in fact playing for his job, and they don't have a second or third round pick. So if they need to go quarterback, if they can't wait, so that's going to necessitate them taking a risk, whether it's Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, one of these other quarterbacks. And you can argue what you want about whether these guys are ready to play or not, but was Sam Darnold ready to play last year? I mean, outside of the first 4 games when he was somehow miraculously a QB1, it was total garbage. So quarterback makes a lot of sense for the Panthers. So, kudos to you for that. Giants, go ahead.
Real quick. So Jose's asking if the Giants take a wide receiver here, and I think you have the answer right here for him. Let him know why you chose not to.
I didn't take a receiver for them because as of right now, 31st overall in offense last year. Of course, it sounds like it makes sense, for them to take a wide receiver, but you got bigger questions at quarterback. I have them taking Ike Ekwonu. To me, it's the best overall player available at this time. You've got to protect the quarterback, whether it's Daniel Jones for a few games this year or they do something else. It's a long-term play for the Giants, who are basically in a total rebound. I think they're okay at wide receiver. You spend all that money on Kenny Golladay, and hey, listen, it can't get any worse, right? I think you're okay at receiver for the Giants. While some of the receivers here make sense, I think you've got to get better in the trenches. You've got to protect your quarterback, whoever it is. I think they're going to give, obviously, like the Texans, they're going to see what Daniel Jones, they're going to give him one more chance. And what if he's the answer or whether he's not the answer, the good thing is you'll have a place in part with Ekwonu as a blindside protector for years to come. So I think that, the Giants, they're not trying to quickly turn it around. I mean, sure, they'd like to, but I think they're going more long-term here, and they're going to, like the Texans, you're looking at improving the trenches, whatever you can, one way or another. And Ekwonu is the kind of kid that, he's going to shore up their offensive line for years to come. And that's the long-term play.
So Scott said that he missed the first 6 picks. So for anyone else who missed it, I'm just going to run through them real quick. Pick 101 was Aiden Hutchinson. Pick 102 was Kayvon Thibodeaux. 103 was Evan Neal. 104 was Trayvon Walker. 105 was Ahmad Gardner. And then 106 was Malik Willis. And we just did the 107. So 108, I like that pick also for the Giants. I think O-line, people always, when they're doing mocks, they seem to always underestimate the offensive line picks going higher in drafts and how important it is to these rosters. So I like the pick there for the Giants. Pick 108. I mean, this could have gone a lot of different ways. It really could have. I think, though, that the Falcons, after losing Calvin Ridley to a 1-year suspension, I think they're going to have to address the position because they really didn't address this position in free agency at all. You talked about how the Houston Texans have arguably the worst roster. The Falcons are up there as well. But they have so many needs. I thought about mocking them a tackle here. I thought about mocking them a guard here. But how ugly this wide receiver core is, I just have a hunch that they're going to attack wide receiver. They're going to add Garrett Wilson here, and just add one of who I think is the top wide receiver in this draft class.
Yep.
So I think they're going to add him here, throw him out there, divert some attention away from Pitts. And then the following year they get Ridley back and they're able to really shore up the rest of the positions they need. And they're going to have a fairly deadly offense. So my pick here at 108 is Atlanta Falcons. What do you think about a wide receiver being added here?
Oh, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, we talked last week on this show about their receiving core. Like, you can't seriously be going to war with this receiving core. I mean, I tweeted a couple days ago, same thing with the Bears, the Texans, the Packers, the Falcons. I mean, Will Fuller's just sitting out there, and I'm wondering, like, what do we not know about that these teams are just not even close to signing Fuller? I understand he's not going to sign it, with Houston because he's already been here, but just makes you kind of curious, like, what's going on out there.
So my understanding with a lot of these
Wilson as being the top receiver in this draft, and it's a ton of sense. He walks in right away and becomes their number one wideout, and could get peppered with triple-digit targets right out the gate.
Yeah, his profile is just outstanding too. 4.3840, standing at 6 foot, 184 pounds. Right, speed score 66th percentile, burst score 58th percentile. He has a lot of the characteristics that a lot of NFL teams are going to be looking for. The piece that, so looking at their depth chart, that's what I was pulling up. Depth chart here, talking about how ugly it is. Auden Tate, wide receiver 1 right now. Damiere Byrd, wide receiver 2. They have Frank Darby. They just re-signed Olamide Zaccheaus, right? It's just such a hot mess at wide receiver that I think they have to do something inside this draft. But there are wide receivers who are waiting for this draft to end as well prior to, accepting offers for free agency. So we'll see what happens. Draft will definitely throw a mix and things, but then there are some options inside the free agency that will be able to address these positions for a lot of teams.
There's plenty of Auden Tate believers out there still, but the kid couldn't even get on the field in Cincinnati, and it just goes to show how weak the Falcons are in that position that you just mentioned, that he could be listed as a wide receiver 1, and that's pretty telling.
All right, pick 109. Jody, who are you taking?
This one I'm really interested in because it's been a long time since we've seen the Seahawks do a complete tear down and rebuild. And I'm kind of curious with they've always been a pedal to the metal, go for it. And, they've been a contender for the better part of the last decade. So I'm kind of curious of, what Pete Carroll and company are going to do here. But listen, the Seahawks have needs all over the field. With the exception of maybe running back, wide receiver, almost everything makes sense here. Quarterback, huge need for them. Offensive line, huge need for them. But they dipped 31st versus the pass last year, and they had problems turning the ball over. They're only 25th in interceptions. Derek Stingley, cornerback, LSU. If there's a guy who's close in this draft to Sauce Gardner, it's Stingley. He's got the size. They can match up with any wide receiver. Excellent in run coverage. He's got the potential, like Sauce Gardner, of being the kind of guy that can shut down half of a field. And I'm looking at, Seattle as they're probably taking an approach, unless they're, and, the Seahawks are always wheelers and dealers on draft day. Could easily trade down here. But I'm thinking that they're just taking the best available player, regardless of what their needs are, which are very abundant. So on my board, Derek Stingley's number 1, and I just think Seattle sits back, takes the best player, and moves forward. And it's just happens to be a huge position of need for them, so it just makes sense all around.
All right, I got the next pick up. Let me check a look here. Scott's been waiting for this one. New York Jets finally get the receiver that they've been trying to acquire all free agency. That is, of course, unless they get a receiver prior to the draft. But we did not do this mock with any trades. So we're assuming that there's no trades between now and the draft day, and the Jets take their ex receiver here at pick 110 to pair with Elijah Moore. And I really like Drake London. Drake London, he's got, excellent size and speed combination, prototypical ex receiver. He just routinely beats double teams. He uses his big frame and body size to shield off defenders and win contested catches. He's big. He's 6'4", 219 pounds. He's a big boy. That's what the Jets need right now. Get that red zone presence, take some pressure off the middle of the field for Elijah Moore. So I think that pick 1.10, Jets finally get the receiver they've been trying to get all year. 112.
That brings us to
111. Sorry, can't count.
No, we're good. That brings us to Washington and the Commanders. A team. Another team with some interesting needs. But listen, they, right or wrong, they're committed to Carson Wentz for at least 1 year. So you've got to get him some weapons. Washington wideouts was 24th in PFF. Their passing game was 24th in PFF's ratings last year. Look, you got Terry McLaurin. That's great. And Curtis Samuel, let's chalk it up to just injuries last year to cost them. I still think Curtis Samuel can be a player in the slot option. Other than that, though, Washington has very little talent. You get a guy like Jameson Williams when he's fully healthy, a massive big play threat and a deep threat from Alabama, 6'2", 179 pounds. He's built to not only be a nightmare downfield home run hitter, he's a contested catch machine. He's second among all FBS wide receivers in yards created after contact last season per Pro Football Focus. This is the kind of guy that's going to make plays in the intermediate and deep part of the field. And once he gets a break on the cornerback, or he can break a tackle, he's gone. I'd love to have seen what his actual speed numbers were, but he's recovering from an injury. But by all indications, he's ahead of pace on his recovery, and they're expecting that he'll be ready to go for week 1. Jameson Williams, to me, he's an instant starter in this offense. And say what you want about Carson Wentz, but he was serviceable last year. And Winston's walking into a ton of snaps, assuming he's healthy for week 1. He's going to see a lot of targets, and he's got a potential to be an overall wide receiver 3-4 right out of the gate. It's a big need for Washington. So to me, it just makes too much sense.
I like it. Love the speed too. Pick 112, Vikings select Kyle Hamilton, and Vikings secondary ranked 25th in PFS ratings for their secondary. They gave up the 3rd most yards on the outside in the NFL with 1,802. And I think they're going to add the top safety here in this draft class. You look at who he's been compared to in terms of athletic scores, and Hamilton's been matched up with Harrison Smith, who's been on this team now for 9-10 years. Is it? I didn't take a look at that before I chopped up the numbers, but it's been around there. And then he's had, look at his production in college here, 138 tackles. He's got, 8 interceptions. He's been so productive. The number 1 safety in this draft class, big body too, 6'4", 219 pounds as well. And I think that they're going to want to swoop up this defender, because let's face it, they're facing Aaron Rodgers 2 times a year still. So I think they're going to need a little help in the secondary, and Kyle Hamilton's going to be the answer. 113.
I love Kyle Hamilton, man. He's probably one of my top 3 favorite players in this whole draft class. And I'm just kind of wondering if these worries about his speed are being blown out of proportion. I'd love for the Texans or the Giants or the Jets to actually take Sauce Gardner and Kyle Hamilton with 2 of their first-round picks. That would be awesome to see a team commit such high draft capital to shore up their secondary. But you know what? To me, it's like you just made your secondary a strength for like a decade if you can re-sign these guys and they could stay on the field and whatnot.
Yep.
Kind of like that plan. It's a bit risky, but anyway, back to the Texans. So, we talked a little bit earlier when they were on the board at 3 that they've got to pick safe picks. And I'm of the belief that Nick Caserio is the kind of guy that they want to build from the trenches. Last year, the Texans, 31st overall defense, and they were 31st versus the run. Obviously, huge concerns. Jermaine Johnson, defensive end from Florida State, superb run defender. He plugs right in. He's a great fit in Lovie Smith's scheme. It's a huge concern for the Texans because they haven't had much of a pass rush threat at all since J.J. Watt's been gone. It's something that it's on the to-do list for the Texans. And in my book, this is actually a strong trade-up spot for any potential teams, because I'm pretty sure the Texans are in business when it comes to accumulating more draft capital. But since we're not doing that in this draft, we're sitting back. On my board, they took the best offensive tackle in the draft, and now they're taking one of the top pass rushers in this draft. So while the Texans fans, the casual fans might see these picks and be like, well, we didn't really come away with much. These are really great picks. These are the kind of building blocks that a team that has the worst roster in football needs to start making in order to return to a competitive level. So if I'm a Texas fan, I walk away with Johnson and Neal, and I think it's a pretty successful first round.
I like it. 114, I got the Ravens selecting offensive tackle Charles Cross. Ravens, their O-line finished 21st ranked overall here, ranked O-line in the NFL. You've seen this offense struggle because of it. Lamar had his struggles. It looked like the rushing was just injured, but definitely had its concerns there as well. I just think that there's a very big possibility that Cross could go earlier as well, but definitely if he slips to 14, I think the Ravens are going to jump on it and shore up that offensive line for Lamar Jackson. 15.
So the Eagles, this is a team that's really interesting. They could go in a number of different directions here. They could use some pass rush. They could beef up their secondary. They could go wide receiver. All things that are on the board for the Eagles. And again, They also the team they just traded with, the Saints, are coming up behind them, and they kind of have similar needs in some regards. So you have to take that like, where we got a pick coming up here? Can we wait around? Let's go with Trent McDuffie for the Washington cornerback for the Eagles. To me, that's probably the biggest need for Philadelphia right now. They moved on from Steven Nelson. McLeod is still a free agent. He's not back. They were only 21st in interceptions last year. McDuffie's an excellent man coverage, and I think he would be an instant upgrade and a nice starter opposite of Darius Slay right away. It'd give the Eagles a pair really, really good cornerbacks. Like I said, you got a pick coming up in 4 spots here. You can look at the other positions. In my view, that was the biggest need defensively for the Eagles, and I had McDuffie as my number 3 corner, so that's the pick.
Okay, I like it. Let's go to the Saints here at pick 16. Their needs include quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, but I think they're going to ultimately pick Kenny Pickett here at 116. Not a strong draft class, but to be able to get a potential starter for a quarterback here at pick 16 is going to be a steal for the Saints. I feel like if we see they may get scared after they see Harris go maybe early, but they may trade up. They have the draft capital to do it. But again, we're not doing any trades during this mock draft. And Kenny Pickett, has a lot of the same traits that this team really desires in a quarterback. You look at his completion percentage in college, 67.2% in 2021 here, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So 4,300 passing yards. I mean, some may say he's a one-hit wonder, but I think he is going to be one of the most NFL ready at the position. And the Saints, are with Jameis Winston, but he's battling back from that ACL injury. So I think they're going to, select their potential future franchise quarterback here at pick 16 and may not even have to trade up to do it. So what's your take? Do you think that they're going to take a quarterback here? Or do you think they're going to go wide receiver? There's a lot of different ways that the Saints could attack this draft.
It would not surprise me at all. If anything, they could look at quarterback with the second of their first round picks, because I don't think the Eagles are. Well, the Eagles could take a quarterback. I mean, let's face it. If Malik Willis was on the board, it might be tempting. In this particular scenario, he's not. Chargers obviously aren't going quarterback. Of course, you always got to be concerned that a team's going to trade up. I think, man, we talked last week about Jameis Winston. I'm not sold on the guy. I understand he came out and had this really nice year last year with Sean Payton, but you're taking Sean Payton out of that offense. I'm afraid that old school Jameis Winston, chuck and duck, is going to come back. I'd have a huge concern. And right now, the Saints don't have a lot of help at wide receiver. Maybe we'll get into that in a couple of picks. When you're on the board, maybe you can help them address that. But like I said, I have some concerns about Winston. So I see Pickett as probably the most pro-ready to play right now. Different opinions on that. I had him mocked. In my first mock, I had him going to 6 to Carolina just because of what we hit on earlier, which was Matt Rule playing for his job. But you're on the board at 17 with the Chargers. I thought the Chargers, LA did a great job this offseason. Their number one need was a cornerback, and that's what they did. They signed J.C. Jackson, which is great. They were just about average in pass blocking last year. They ranked 16th according to PFF. But your current right tackle, Storm Norton, ranked 125th in PFF's blocking grades. It's not good enough to protect Justin Herbert. With Trevor Penning, you see him Northern Iowa tackle. You see him mock to the Chargers a lot. It's a little risky. A lot of upside with him. The kid is mean. He's got a lot of extracurricular playing after the whistle type of plays and all that. He also has a ton of upside. He was the number one relative RAS score for tackles in this whole class. 6'7", 325 pounds, and he ran a 4.8, which is pretty phenomenal for someone of that size. I think you re-signed Mike Williams. Wide receiver is still a possibility for the Chargers. If anything, I'd love to actually see them do that, because you'd have some awesome pieces in place to have. We talked about the AFC West being such fun division to watch next year. But with Penning, like I said, you're protecting your number one asset, which is Justin Herbert. And I see it as it's a pretty moderate need for the Chargers. And there's the pick for me.
Yeah, they've been shoring up that offensive line. This just, I think, adds to that at another level. They've definitely addressed the defense here in free agency. That's gotten, a lot stronger where it's not as needed here inside the round one. So I definitely could see them addressing the offensive line here as well. So I like the pick. Pick 118, Philadelphia Eagles are going to select Treylon Burks. Now, many had him pegged as the top wide receiver to begin the 2022 offseason, but I think he slips down here to the Eagles, and this would be the third first-round wide receiver drafted by the Eagles for 3 years straight. I mean, you look at, though, Rager was a bust, and they need some help. They really have to address the position for Devonta Smith, to relieve some pressure on him. And Burks, he has the speed, he has the size. He's been compared to players like A.J. Brown, Dwayne Bowe. I mean, he's 6'2", 224 pounds, ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. And, he comes in, he's got a little more wiggle to him. So I think that they're definitely going to address the position here again. I think it depends on, are they going to wait and see if they're going to do it at pick 15 or are they going to do it at pick 18? But I think either way, one of these picks are going to be a wide receiver, and Treylon Burks on the board, I think they're going to select him.
I agree. You got to give Jalen Hurts some more weapons. And again, this is not a great quarterback class. Now that the Eagles, they've stocked up with draft capital for next year now after the trade with the Saints. So if you give Jalen Hurts weapons, you give him one more chance to see what he can do this year. I know he's a great fantasy quarterback, a little bit less so as an actual NFL thrower, but you give him another significant weapon here. You give him a chance to see what he can do. And if Jalen Hurts tanks or, he's not what you're looking for, then, you start over again at quarterback last year. But it's definitely a need for the Eagles. And you see Burks all over the board. We're, all of us draftniks out there are kind of torn on him because he's slowly started to slip a little bit. Sometimes you see him in the 20s, and sometimes you see him still as high as 11, 12, 13. But, you're right in the meaty part of the curve here, and it's definitely a need for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think his combine numbers is what's having him slip down this board, right? This 40-yard dash was in the 49th percentile. His burst score was in the 85th percentile, which was good. But you look at, his burst score was in the 51st percentile and his agility score in the 10th percentile. So he's got some question marks after the combine, but college production's there. So I think we're definitely going to see him kind of in the middle of the draft here. But we have seen him be mocked as late as like Kansas City at pick 29 or pick 30. Even we've seen him be mocked at 28 to Green Bay Packers. So a lot of different options for him, a lot of different teams that he could land on. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens during the draft. All right. You're up at pick 19.
Well, if they're going to take Treylon Burks, and let's have the Saints take Chris Olave, same position, but still a huge need for the Saints because after Michael Thomas, you don't really have much. I know they re-signed Traquan Smith, but, we keep waiting for Traquan Smith to do something, and it just isn't happening. Chris Olave, really, really interesting. 6 foot, 187, ran a 4.39. He's a little similar to Will Fuller in the sense of he has a chance to really develop into a really, really nice deep threat. However, he's one of the best route runners in this class. I know you hit on that when you did your video write-up for Chris Olave. Great job, by the way. I like him overall, and a lot of people think he's up there, in that part of the draft, the Washington Jets, Minnesota part of the draft, right outside of top 10. He could go as high as, even top 10 in some mocks out there. Definitely a position of need for the Saints. And, I have my concerns about Jameis Winston, but those concerns could be alleviated a little bit with some more playmakers on offense. And that's certainly what Chris Olave can be.
Yeah, I had trouble not selecting him earlier in this mock. I wanted to mock him to a couple other teams and chose not to, but I've seen him go pretty high in a lot of mocks as well. So I think that he's another player that has just a really wide range of outcomes here for next week in the draft. Pick 20, Steelers are going to take their quarterback here with Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder is, another option outside Malik Willis who has dual threat ability. I mean, he rushed for his freshman year. He rushed for 583 yards. Sophomore year, he rushed for 650 yards. His junior year, 592 yards. And then 2021 scaled it back a bit with 355 yards. But, he's still able to throw the ball. Where sometimes you see just such strength in one area, a weakness in the other. But he still has, a decent completion percentage. 2018, 62%. 2019, not so well, 55%, but then pumps it back up to 66% in 2020 and 65% in 2021. So some argue that Desmond Ridder is the most complete quarterback going into the 2022 draft. There's a lot of different variants of opinions on that, but I think that after losing Big Ben to retirement and taking Trubisky as a flyer, the contract allows them to move on to Desmond Ridder here in 2022 and even in 2020 or in 2022, but 2023 at the worst case scenario, we're going to see him more in the field. So I think they're going to take their quarterback here and shore up the position and give Tomlin some help into another winning season.
Unusual territory for the Steelers to be in a position where they're kind of in need of a quarterback, but things move on. That's the way it goes.
Yep. Pick 21. Who are you taking?
Another club that's not really used to being in a position where they need quarterback, Patriots. One thing about the Patriots, Bill Belichick, generally, when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, he's going to make good picks. Offense, you go a little bit more concerned. So I'm going to give them Devin Loyd, the Utah linebacker. I could see them targeting a cornerback here after losing J.C. Jackson. That's obviously a huge need, but when it comes to this particular spot in the draft, I think cornerback can probably wait around for them because at this point, the elite guys are gone. Dante Hightower is gone. With Devin Loyd, you have a really, really versatile linebacker, which Bill Belichick loves. He loves guys that can do multiple things. Hightower can play all three spots and on the field. He can play. He's an excellent pass rusher. He ran 4.66, so he's fast enough and capable enough in coverage that he could cover tight ends. It's kind of the perfect storm for Bill Belichick in terms of it's a position of need, and he's got that versatility that Belichick always seems to look for. I think it's a pretty good fit for a Patriots defense that they need a few weapons.
Defense wins championships. We know Belichick loves his defense, so I would not be surprised to see it either. 22. Oh, and this is the one I love. We've been messaging about this. I mocked George Pickens to
there it is
to the Packers. I mocked him again. I love George Pickens. I think that a lot of people have him mocked in round 2, but I think he's gonna climb more than people are thinking. He's a very underrated X receiver here for the NFL. And after losing Davante Adams to the Raiders, let's face it, they need they need a wide receiver, and they got to keep their quarterback happy. If they don't take a wide receiver, I swear Aaron Rodgers is going to burn the stadium down. Like, there's no way that he's going to be happy if they don't take a wide receiver. So you look at what Pickens brings to the table. He's got the height, the frame. He can run a full route tree. I mean, he has great separation. Who does this kind of sound like? It kind of sounds like Davante Adams to me, right? His routes are just, that's what impresses me the most watching his tape was how well he ran routes. And I compared him to like Jerry Jeudy, who was one of the best route runners out of college that I've seen in a long time. And I could see, Davante Adams' strength is also creating separation with his routes. And I think Pickens would be a fantastic fit here for the Packers here at pick 22.
And backing you up there, so Matt Harmon, when it comes to scouting wide receivers, there's few better in this game in fantasy football than Matt Harmon with Yahoo and Reception Perception. He had some really, really good things to say about George Pickens this week. So my expectations are Pickens' ADP is about to rise, and it's not going to be a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to see him slip into the first round. Billy, I know you've kind of been on board with that. And like I said, when that happens, you need to be tooting your own horn because you were higher on him than even I was. You've had to make me, recheck some things and go back and evaluate things. So I'd really like to see it happen. I mean, it's definitely one of the possibilities, and I think it would kind of rock fantasy Twitter to the core to see him go that high.
Yeah, he's got some concerns. I mean, he's had some bonehead moods on and off the field, but I think he's grown up from those, and I think he's moved on, and I think that he's ready to take this leap and be an extra receiver in the NFL. So I can't wait to see what happens. This is like this is the area that I'm so excited for the draft, like the pick 22 through like 30 is I'm just over the moon to see what happens. All right, 23.
So the Cardinals, this one was kind of tough because the Cardinals, they kind of have, needs all over the place, and it matches up well with some of the players here that are on the board. They could go cornerback, definitely need wide receiver after losing Christian Kirk. I know you re-signed AJ Green, but does he really have that much left in the tank? Middle linebacker, also huge need for Arizona. But in this case, I'm looking at what's available here to us. George Karlaftis, Purdue defensive end. Look, the Cardinals lost Chandler Jones. He had 10.5 sacks last year. That's a huge void on the right defensive end opposite of J.J. Watt. They don't have much that they can rush out there right now. Karlaftis, he's pretty versatile. I think he can move around in different places. He could play as an edge rusher. I think he could play inside in a 4-3. He could play upright, put his hand on the ground. He's got a lot of versatility. I've seen some mocks with him going to Baltimore at 14, and they think he's a terrific fit possibly for the Ravens. So at this point, 9 picks later for Arizona, who can sit back and just kind of take the best player that fills needs they have. I think it's actually a pretty good value pick. And again, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them go corner or wide receiver, but I'd go with who was the top available pass rusher on my board. So, just check off one of the needs for the Cardinals and move on to round 2 for fill out the secondary.
All right, pick 24. I got Dallas taking Kenyon Green. They used to have what was considered the best offensive line of football. We've seen this kind of fall apart the last couple years, and they just lost, or they just cut, I should say. La'el Collins, Bengals picked him up, but they're in need now of shoring up that O-line, and not many better people to do it than Kenyon Green here in the draft. So I think it's a priority ad for them to shore up the position, protect their franchise quarterback with Dak Prescott, and give Zeke some breathing room, and Tony Pollard as well. So Dallas selecting offensive guard Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. Pick 25.
I've had Dallas on O-line the whole time. I just haven't taken Zion, but Green also fits well inside, can move around different places. Plug and play starter right away, makes a ton of sense. So with the Bills, wow, what an offseason for Buffalo. Talk about taking what was already one of the best rosters in football. You add so many pieces to their defense, and you have to, it's not really a surprise to see why, the Bills are the overall favorite at this point. Offensive line makes a lot of sense for Buffalo, despite the fact that they do really well in rushing. They were Pro Football Focus 27th run blocking line. That's masked a lot by Josh Allen. You could see them going wide receiver, even linebacker here. But in my eyes, the best available player that fits a need for them is Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson. So right now, locked into the starting spot opposite of Tre'Davious White is Dane Jackson, who Pro Football Focus graded as 82nd out of 116 cornerbacks last year. Booth, superb talent. It's a 3. He's solid in run protection. He's great in coverage. He's got the size and the speed that he can combat wide receivers. I think it's like attacking a position of strength. Like I said, while that side of the field is still a need for the Bills, now you're taking away and you're adding a first-round cornerback to support Tre'Davious White. You've already reinforced your pass rush. Now the only need on that side of the ball for the Bills is some depth at linebacker, which can easily happen anywhere in the top 4 or 5 rounds. So this is reinforcing what was already an intimidating, awesome defense, making it that much better. And it's just going to reinforce the Bills as the prohibitive Super Bowl favorites.
Well, and you look at what happened, down that playoff run where neither team was playing defense, or you could say both offenses were just that damn good. But being able to shore up that position, I think, is going to alleviate a lot of concerns.
If only all the games could be that fun for fantasy purposes throughout the year, huh?
Oh man, I think I'd have a heart attack if it was always like that. I went back and forth with this one a lot, and I mocked this differently than what I see a lot of mocks do. I've seen wide receiver be mocked here probably the most, but the Titans, I think wide receivers a huge need for them, but linebackers a need, offensive line's a need. Tight end is a need though too. You look at this team and you look at their depth chart, Austin Hooper right now, who they acquired in the free agency, is their tight end 1. Swaim, number 2. Ferk Daddy ended up going off to, what was it, the Falcons. So tight end is a need for them, especially when they run 12 personnel as one of the highest personnel groups inside the league. So I'm going to say Tennessee Titans are going to shock people here and take Trey McBride with pick 26. Because I think Buccaneers fans were really hoping for a tight end here just in case Gronk retires.
Okay, that brings us to the Bucs. Again, we talked last week, they're still mainly bringing back the roster that just won a Super Bowl, but there was a little bit of drop off last year. They dipped to 21st overall against the run, and Pro Football Focus graded Tampa Bay's run defense as 27th overall, and that's kind of concerning, but considering you had Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh on that team, who are both gone. So huge need on the defensive front for the Bucs. So let's go with Devontae Wyatt, Georgia defensive tackle. Right now, pencil in at the left defensive, in their defensive line is Joe Tryon Soyinka, rated 98 out of 108 at Pro Football Focus. That sounds like a problem. The Bucs are still a team that fancies themselves as Super Bowl contenders, despite the fact that they're going with a different coach, going in a different direction. It's hard to argue against that. You could easily see them emerging from the NFC, but to me, shoring up that defensive line is probably their number one need. Like I said, you've got to increase pressure. You lost 2 key starters that were already aging veterans, a little bit past their prime. They don't have much there now. So I fully expect if a player like Wyatt slips this far, and again, this is a guy that in a lot of cases you see mocked to Houston at 13. So this is a great value pick for Tampa to get somebody that can start right away on our defensive front this late in the draft. So to me, it shouldn't take them long turn in the draft card if they can get Wyatt at this point.
Okay, I like it. 28, I got to the Packers taking center Tyler Linderbaum. A lot of people are saying that he might slip out of the first round. They're concerned about his size, but PFF has him graded at the highest ever for a center, and the Packers are in need to help protect their signal caller. We saw the mock earlier. I took them with a wide receiver. I think they shore up the offensive line here, protect Rodgers, and so he can throw to his receivers, and they're going to get one of the best centers to ever be graded in PFF's grading system. So I think it's a steal to be able to select him here at 28.
Yeah, so back-to-back with the Chiefs. A lot of needs on wide receiver for the Chiefs. Maybe you can look at that afterwards, because right now, while it doesn't matter, I guess, what order they go in, the biggest defensive need for Kansas City, who's kind of started to slip quite a bit last year. They were only 30th in sacks, 27th overall defense after 2 years ago where they were way up there and doing really well. Biggest problem for them was in run defense. They were 31st in rushing yards for attempt given up. Jordan Davis, another Georgia standout defensive tackle, shouldn't be available this late in the draft. The kid is huge, 6'6", 341 pounds. Massive inside run stopper. He's still a development project in place when it comes to pass rusher, but that's not where Kansas City necessarily needs to shore up right now. You can't stop the run. You're not going to do anything. It's a tremendous value pick for Davis. Again, another guy you commonly see inside the top 15, inside the top 24. So for him to slip in Kansas City, it's a dire need for them as a 27th defense last year, plug and play instant starter. So that's, with the defensive pick on of their back-to-backs here, makes a ton of sense for me.
Yep. I got the wide receiver for pick 2, or like you said, mix and match, doesn't matter. Christian Watson. Oh man, this kid, he's one of the most intriguing prospects to me at the wide receiver position. He's just been so explosive at the college level. He's got the frame. He's 6'4", 208 pounds, but he's just off the chart metrics. 96th percentile 40-yard dash, ran a 4.36, 95th percentile burst score, at a 133.5, 97th percentile catch radius, 98th percentile speed score. I mean, strengths, size, speed, you name it. I mean, it's been there. I mean, he plays fast. Watching his tape, like he plays fast all the time, and he just has quickness. He has the ability and the strength to defeat press coverage. You look at Kansas City, and people say, they lost one of the most dynamic wide receivers in the game. Well, this is their chance to replace them with arguably the most explosive wide receivers in this draft class, and Christian Watson. So I think they get their need here at wide receiver, and they're going to be able to put him on the outside and just burn the field down with him and MVS. And have Juju run underneath. And I think this is going to be a deadly addition here for the Chiefs and for defenders to try to cover.
Yes, huge need for Kansas City. You don't trade a player like Tyreek Hill, and you don't have some sort of plan in place. So it's like, how do we take what may be the biggest deep threat in football and replace them? Now, they'll do some things differently, but Christian Watson, great fit. Very common to see him in the bottom part of the first round. A lot of mocks. Him and Sky Moore, those are my two favorite small school guys that are right there in the second round. That it would not be a surprise at all to see them slip into the first round. And with Watson, hey, if he lands in Kansas City, instant snaps, instant starter, he should move in to the first round of rookie drafts. If anything, top 10.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do, because they added MVS for that burning position, but you could throw both these guys on the outside, right? Streak, and then you can have Watson run all over the place too, but you're going to have so many different weapons here with Juju and Kelsey running across the middle of the field. McCole Hardman probably being used as kind of a hybrid player as well. But Watson has the ability to take it to the house on any given play. So I'm very excited to see what the Chiefs do here at pick 30. All right, final two picks. Who you got at 31?
Would love to see it from a fantasy perspective.
Absolutely.
So the Bengals, biggest need for the Bengals was their O-line. They did a great job spending a ton of cash, shoring it up via free agency. So to me, they can look at the other side of the ball now. And the biggest weakness for them is probably at left cornerback with Eli Apple, who they re-signed. He was Pro Football Focus had him graded to 71st out of 116 cornerbacks. He's not good enough. So let's go with Kaiir Elam, Florida cornerback. Love him. He's got a outstanding size and speed profile. 6'1.5", 190, ran a 4.39. This kid can run with any wideout in football. He's also got the size to be able to make a plus play, batting away contested catches and all that kind of situation. He stood out throughout the season. This year for him wasn't his best year, but when you look at his film from 2020, 2021, his previous season, not last year, looked like a potential dominant NFL cornerback. To me, like I said, this is the Bengals' top need defensively. They don't have a lot of needs on offense after spending all that draft capital. I think this is the situation where, to me, Elam is the last cornerback that I had graded as a top 35, top 40 value. So, the Bengals can't afford really to wait 32 more picks to address what's their biggest need. So just makes a ton of sense. And again, you see Elam as a top 20 in a lot of mock drafts. So it's a great value for their defense at this point.
Yep, I like it.
Really,
yep.
What are the Lions going to do to close it out?
Close it out. They're going to address. They're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I had him taking an edge rusher at pick 2. I have him taking the safety Daxton Hill here at pick 32. Again, I mentioned it earlier. They had the bottom ranked defense in the league. Their secondary was 30th, so not much better than the overall defense, but their secondary was in trouble last year. They were forced to play 2 undrafted rookie free agents last year, over 300 snaps. They're in dire need of a safety, and no one better to do it than Daxton Hill. So I think they've been pretty sound on Goff as a quarterback. I don't think they're going to have a need to take one in the first round. I think they're going to have the chance to take him in later in the draft. And I think they're going to just continue to shore up their defensive side of the ball. And Dan Campbell has stated they want to bite kneecaps, and that's the only way you're doing that is on defense.
Well, If the Lions are interested in quarterbacks here, it would make sense to take a versatile defensive guy like Dax Hill here because they're coming up getting 2 picks.
Yeah,
Jacksonville's not picking a quarterback at 101. I can't imagine the Jags are going to listen to trade offers to, I guess, if anyone liked anyone. But if the Lions and in our mock, we actually have the 3 quarterbacks going in the first round, which is
we do.
Yeah,
Pickett, Ritter, and Malik. Yep.
Right. So usually you're seeing a lot of mocks. I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, the normal over-under is actually over that, but this is not a great quarterback class. So, I don't know if the Lions like any of these other kids that are out there. It just makes sense for them to take them in 2 spots rather than, tie up another first-round contract to a guy. Second-round contract sounds better.
Absolutely. That's the thought process there. Exactly. So, I think that's it. We're going to be back here next week on Wednesday, and we're going to do 5 o'clock on Wednesday. We're actually going to spin the wheel. And for those of you, if you did not see it, head on over to Twitter. I have a post up there. If you share it, you can win a Deebo Samuel signed card. So share that, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Hit that subscribe button, like it, turn on notifications, and retweet that tweet that I tweeted out. And then we're going to do the spin the wheel here live on the show. I found a little website. We can plug in all the people who did it, and we can spin the wheel. And then boom, automatically will show who won on the screen, and we'll get them over there, that Deebo signed card. So I think that's it. Jody, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Nope. I'm getting, really excited about the draft. Like I said, now at this point when we're live, it's less than a week before all the madness starts. And this is it's a great time of year because as soon as this weekend is over, we're smack dab right in the middle of dynasty and draft and redraft and sleeper articles and bus and all that. And this is the happy time of year, and I'm just so fired up about it.
Yeah, I always wait for the draft because I want to start my projections, and I don't like doing them too early. And then
I had to talk you off the ledge today. You were wanting to get started. I said, let's just wait because after the second round, it's going to be a complete redo for a lot of teams. So let's just hold off.
Yeah, I was hoping. I wanted to start a couple weeks ago, and and you simmered me down. I was getting eager. I was getting anxious. I was like, man, I just want to get these things started. You talked some sense into me, definitely. So, well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Again, we'll see you back here Wednesday. That's going to be the 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, and we'll do that giveaway. Thanks for tuning in, and it's draft week in less than a week, fellas. Take care.